Hi, this is Sarah Broninger, math teacher, and we're doing a series of videos on how to program a student. And Yoka did a video on how you need to get in calm with the student. Fabulous, that's your first step. Now, how do I actually assess where a student is? LRH has many references on the terrors of testing, and I'll attach those to this video in the comments. So we don't test. So how do you know where a student is academically? So the first thing I do is I get the student to just talk to me. What did you like about schooling? What did you hate about schooling? What's your favorite thing? And just get them to talk and listen carefully. They'll tell you where their problem is, not very sophisticatedly, but they'll tell you. They'll tell you about, Mrs. Gould, who was their favorite teacher, and they loved her, and she was awesome. And you ask what grade that was. Well, that was fourth grade, so they probably got fourth grade. And then they'll tell you about Mr. Squirrel, who was just awful, and he was rotten, he was mean to them, and he didn't like him, and he was unfair. What grade was that? Fifth grade, so he didn't get fifth grade. How do you know that he didn't just have overts on that teacher? It doesn't matter. The teacher could have been really mean, and he wouldn't have learned anything. And the teacher could have been a dull, and the kid could have committed overts, and he also didn't learn anything. All I care about is what grade did he not learn anything? And after I've had them talking for a while, I say, okay, what's your favorite part of math? And they'll pick something recent. They're not going to say my favorite part is, addition, because they don't want to look like a dummy and there are other kids around. They're going to pick something recent, and they're going to pick something they feel confident in. Good. That's what I want. So I did this with the 16-year-old, and he picked finding x equations. Great. So I said, let's do some finding x equations, and I draw some finding x equations. You're going to notice what they can and cannot do. You're going to notice in those finding x equations that every time there's a positive or negative number, that he can get it right when it's adding and subtracting, but when it's multiplying or dividing, he gets it wrong. So you don't put any multiplying and dividing of negative numbers in there. You made a note. So you just have addition and subtraction of negative numbers, and he shines. You notice that when you put in fractions, he gets sloppy. He gets sloppy, and he goes faster, and he gets them kind of sort of right, but sort of wrong, and then he gets a little irritated, and there's a little nervous hysteria coming in. You take the fractions out. He calms right down. You're like, okay, fractions. You're going to notice what he's good at. Does he run for a calculator to turn every fractions to a decimal? Does he need a calculator to tell you that what 120 divided by 4 is? How's his head math? Can he divide? You're going to notice all of these things. Okay, now you've had 3 hours with this student on something he chose and on something he likes. He hasn't been tested, and you already pretty much know everything you need to do. But you can take it one step further. I tell the student, your job is to see if you like being taught by me. And my job is to see if I like teaching you. And it won't always be things you like. So let's pick something you never really felt that good at, and let's do that. And so he's going to pick something, and chances are he's not going to pick his big ruin in math. He's not going to sit there and say fractions or long-tail division. He's going to pick something recent that he also feels fairly decent at. Fine. So, the student I just did picked linear equations. I'm like, great. Linear equations has all sorts of opportunities for me to observe his basic math. So we do linear equations. Now you've got another 3 or 4 hours of a student in front of you who's willing, who chose the subject, who's interested in the subject. You're carefully making sure that he doesn't look bad, and you're making notes of everything he doesn't know. And you've got yet another 3 hours of his deciding, I can do this. I can learn from her. She doesn't make me feel bad. I don't feel like a dummy. I'm not embarrassed. And all the hours that you can get of that equal bravery to address what they need to do. And I have had students where that takes a couple of hours, and I have had students where that takes weeks. It depends on how crushed they are by not understanding their earlier grades. So you have to look at the student in front of you, and you have to judge when they're ready to go to the step of, now we're going to confront the basics that are out. And how do you get a 16-year-old to be okay on going back to grade 4? That's my next video, because I've gotten that down because I've had to do it a lot. So my next video, I'll tell you how you bring a 16-year-old or any age to being okay on going and reviewing and actually cleaning up all their basics. All right, bye for now.